I remember every single detail of that morning. Not because it was special, but because it was the last day of my old life. The sun was hitting the kitchen table in that specific way it only does in September. I was 2 bites into a bagel, scrolling through emails, when the notification popped up. It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't a warning. It was just a red badge icon on my banking app. Incoming transfer. Employer payroll reversal. And then my phone rang. It took about 30 seconds to confirm what I already knew. The startup I had poured 3 years of my life into, the one where I was employee number 4, the one where I worked 80-hour weeks while the CEO bought a second Porsche, had frozen operations. No severance, no warning. Just a canned email from HR and a Zoom link for a town hall that never happened. I was 31 years old. I had a mortgage, a car payment, and a 2-year-old daughter who thought I was a superhero because I could lift her onto my shoulders. And I had just become a liability. 045. Introduction. My name is Jake. I'm the younger brother. In my family, that meant something specific. It meant I was the dreamer, the one who took risks, the one who chased things that looked stupid on paper. My brother Mark, he was the rock, the stable one, the one who got the corporate job right out of college, married his high school sweetheart, and bought a house in a subdivision where the street names all sounded like golf courses. We loved each other, but there was always this vibration, this hum of superiority that came off him like heat off asphalt. He never said it out loud, but I felt it every time we had dinner at my parents' house. He'd ask me how my little projects were going, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. When my startup failed, I didn't tell him immediately. I spent 2 weeks updating my resume, calling contacts, trying to find a bridge. I had 3 months of savings. I thought I could make it work. Setup. It was a Sunday. Family dinner at my mom's place. Pot roast, the whole deal. I walked in and tried to put on a brave face. My wife, Sarah, had stayed home with our daughter, Ella, who had a fever. I was alone. I sat down at the table across from Mark. He was wearing a polo shirt with his company logo on it. Mercer Logistics. He was a regional operations manager. Nothing fancy, but it was a title. It meant he had a corner office with a window that looked out over a parking lot, but at least it was his window. "So, Jake," my dad said, cutting the roast, "how's the tech world treating you?" I hesitated. The silence lasted maybe 2 seconds, but it felt like an hour. "Actually," I said, putting my fork down, "the company folded last week. I'm out of work." My mom's hand went to her mouth. She has this habit of taking inventory of everyone's emotional temperature. And right then, the temperature was dropping fast. "Oh, honey," she said. "I'm so sorry." Mark took a sip of his beer. He didn't look sorry. He looked interested, like he was watching a documentary about a car crash that he was glad he wasn't in. "Wow," he said, leaning back. "That sucks. I told you, man, those startups are just gambling. You were gambling with your career." "I wasn't gambling," I said. "I was building something." "Did it build?" he asked. He had this grin. It was the grin of a guy who cashed a check every 2 weeks without fail. A guy who had never had his payroll reversed. I didn't answer. "I mean," he continued, looking at my dad for validation. "You're 31, Jake. You don't have a 401k. You don't have a pension. What do you have? A MacBook and a dream?" My dad cleared his throat. "All right, Mark. Let's not kick him while he's down." "I'm not kicking him," Mark said, raising his hands in mock surrender. "I'm just saying, maybe it's time to get a real job. You know, a job where you don't have to wear a hoodie to a board meeting." He laughed. It was a short, sharp bark of a laugh. My mom looked at the table. My dad stared at the ceiling. And I sat there, feeling the heat crawl up the back of my neck. I wanted to leave. I wanted to scream. But I didn't have a leg to stand on. He was right. I was broke. 3 o'clock. Rising suspicion. 3 weeks passed. I applied to 47 jobs. I got 4 interviews, 0 offers. My savings evaporated. I started using credit cards to buy groceries. Sarah and I stopped talking about money because talking about money just meant arguing about the choices that had led us to that moment. I was desperate. One night, I was scrolling through LinkedIn at 2 a.m. I saw a job posting. Mercer Logistics, entry-level data entry clerk, $18.50 an hour. It was a gut punch. This was the company my brother worked for. The company he bragged about. The company that gave him that corner office and that polo shirt. I stared at the screen for 20 minutes. The humiliation of applying was almost too much to bear. But the humiliation of foreclosure? That was worse. I applied. I didn't tell Mark. I figured the application would disappear into a black hole, rejected by some algorithm. But a week later, I got a call. An interview. The next day, I was sitting in a sterile beige conference room, being interviewed by a guy named Kyle, who was 25 years old and had the energy of a golden retriever on caffeine. "Your resume is impressive, Jake," Kyle said. "Why are you applying for a data entry role?" "I need stability," I said. It was the truth. He offered me the job on the spot. 4:15. Conflict. My first day was a Monday. I put on the cheapest dress shirt I owned. I drove to the office park. I walked past the glass doors and checked in at the front desk. I made it to my cubicle, a gray fabric box in the middle of the floor, nowhere near a window, before I saw him. Mark. He was walking down the main aisle with a coffee cup, talking to a manager. He saw me. He stopped. The coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. "Jake?" he said. He wasn't smiling. He was confused. "Hey, Mark. What are you doing here?" "I work here now." He blinked. "Doing what?" "Data entry," I said. "Just started." It took a second for the reality to settle in. I saw the gears turning in his head. And then I saw the smile. That same condescending grin from the dinner table. "Data entry?" he repeated, like the words were a bad taste in his mouth. "You're a data entry clerk? At my company?" "It's a job, Mark." He leaned in close, so only I could hear. "You couldn't find anything better? You had to come here? To my office? Where everyone knows your name because they know you're my broke brother?" I didn't say anything. He laughed again, that same bark. "All right, well, welcome to the team, little brother. Try not to mess up too much. I have a reputation to protect." He walked away. I sat down in my cubicle. The chair was broken. It leaned to the left. I stared at the dual monitors in front of me, which were covered in sticky notes with passwords and instructions I didn't understand. I wanted to quit. I should have quit. But I couldn't. 5:45. Rising suspicion. The first few weeks were hell. Mark didn't just ignore me, he weaponized his authority. He was a manager, but not my direct manager. That didn't stop him. He would walk past my cubicle and make comments just loud enough for everyone to hear. "Still here, Jake? Keeping the lights on?" "Don't stress too much. It's not like you have a mortgage or anything." "Oh, wait, you do." He told the office manager to put me on the worst shift, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. I was waking up at 4:30 every morning, driving in the dark, while Sarah tried to get Ella ready for daycare alone. But here's the thing about being invisible. People forget you're there. I started noticing things. Mark was always on the phone, but he didn't take those calls in his office. He took them in the stairwell, or in the parking lot, or in the supply closet. He would close the door and his voice would drop. I wasn't trying to spy, but the cubicle walls are thin, and his office was right next to the break room. When he had a loud conversation on speakerphone, the whole floor could hear it. One afternoon, I was getting a cup of coffee. The coffee machine was broken, so I had to use the filter pot in the break room. Mark was in the supply closet across the hall. The door was cracked. "I don't care if the numbers don't match," he said. His voice was tight, angry. "Fix them. Make them match. Do I have to do everything myself?" I didn't think much of it. Corporate people are always stressed about numbers. But then I started looking at the data. My job was simple. I entered shipping manifests into the system. Barcodes, weights, destinations. I had to match them against the invoices from the trucking companies. At first, everything looked normal. But there was one account, a small carrier out of Texas. Every time I entered their data, the weight didn't match. The manifests said 40,000 pounds. The invoices said 44,000 pounds. Every single time. I flagged it. I sent an email to my supervisor, Kyle. Kyle walked over to my desk. He looked nervous. "Hey, Jake, don't worry about that one. That's a known discrepancy. Just enter the invoice numbers as is." "But the weights don't match," I said. "That's a 4,000-pound difference every shipment. That adds up." "Jake." Kyle leaned in. He was sweating. "Just enter the numbers as they appear on the invoice. Don't change anything, okay?" He walked away. I sat there. The gears were turning. 7:30. Conflict deepens. I didn't go home that night. I stayed late. I started cross-referencing. I pulled up every invoice from that Texas carrier for the last 6 months. Every one had a weight discrepancy. Every one had been approved by a specific manager. Mark Mercer. My brother. I dug deeper. I accessed the archived logs from the warehouse scanners. When a truck was loaded, the scanner recorded the weight. The actual weight. The real weight. Every time that Texas carrier loaded a truck, the scanner weight matched the manifest. 40,000 pounds. But the invoices, the ones Mark approved, said 44,000 pounds. The company was paying for 44,000 pounds of freight. The carrier was hauling 40,000. Someone was pocketing the difference on 4,000 pounds of phantom freight, every single load. It was a fraud. A simple, elegant, dirty fraud. And my brother was in the middle of it. I felt sick. I felt dizzy. I sat in the dark parking lot for an hour that night, staring at the dashboard lights. My brother, the stable one, the responsible one, the one who laughed at me for being a failure, he was a thief. 9 o'clock. Betrayal/secret. I didn't confront him immediately. I needed more. I started watching him like a hawk. I started taking pictures of the invoices with my phone. I started keeping a private log of the discrepancies. It took me 2 weeks to find the smoking gun. I was working a Saturday shift. The office was empty. Mark had told everyone he was going to a regional conference in Dallas, but his car was still in the parking lot. I walked past his office. The door was closed. I heard a voice. He was on the phone. "Yeah, the check is clean," he said. "I've been routing it through the fuel surcharge account. It looks like operational overhead, Nobody checks the fuel stuff. Pause. No, my brother works here now. I know, it's pathetic. But he's a nobody. He doesn't see anything. He's too busy crying about his mortgage. He laughed. I stood in the hallway. My hands were shaking. The betrayal wasn't just the fraud. It was the fact that he was laughing about me, about my situation, about the fact that I was so desperate I had to crawl to his company for a minimum wage job just to feed my kid. I walked away. I didn't make a sound. I went back to my cubicle. I opened the shared drive. I found the fuel surcharge account logs. It was a hidden folder, password protected. But Mark had written the password on a sticky note under his keyboard. I had seen him pull it out once. I typed in the password. Access granted. There it was. A spreadsheet with payments to a shell company. A company called Lone Star Logistics, the Texas carrier. Over 2 years, the fraudulent payments totaled $340,000. 10:45. Emotional confrontation. I confronted him 2 days later. It was a Tuesday evening. The office was quiet. Most people had gone home. Mark was packing his bag, getting ready to leave. I walked into his office and closed the door. "Hey, Jake," he said, not looking up. "Need something? Lost your stapler?" I put my phone on his desk. I had the spreadsheet open. "I need you to explain this." He looked at the screen. His face went pale. It was like watching a switch flip. The smugness drained away, replaced by something cold and offensive. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, Mark," I said. My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding. "I've been tracking it for a month. The Texas carrier, the phantom weight, the fuel surcharge account. It's all in here." He stared at me. The air in the room got heavy. "So what?" he said. His voice dropped. "You think you can blackmail me? Who do you think they're going to believe, Jake? The regional manager with 10 years of service, or the part-time data entry clerk who just got hired off the street? You have no proof. I have the spreadsheet. You have a copy of a file. I can delete the original. I can say you fabricated it. I have screenshots on my phone. I have photos of the invoices. I have recorded you on the phone, Mark." I was bluffing about the recording, but he didn't know that. His face changed. The coldness turned into something else. Fear. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to call Mom and Dad," I said. "Right now. I want you to tell them what you did. I want you to tell them how you laughed at me while you were stealing. That's ridiculous." Then I go to the CEO and the cops. He looked at his phone. He looked at me. The silence stretched. "Fine," he said. "Fine." He called our mom. I watched him do it. I stood there while he explained, in a flat, defeated voice, that he had made a mistake with some financial records. He didn't confess to the full amount. He said it was a few thousand. But it was enough. I heard my mom crying on the other end. When he hung up, he looked at me with pure hatred. "Happy?" he said. "Not yet," I said. "I'm keeping the evidence. If you try to fire me, if you try to screw me over, I release it. You lose your job. You lose your house. You lose your family. Understand?" He nodded. I walked out of his office. 12:30. Consequences. I thought I had won. I thought the threat was enough. I thought he would back down and I could just survive until I found another job. And then I would leave this miserable place behind. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I got called into HR. The HR director was a woman named Patricia. She had a kind face and a cold voice. Next to her was a security guard. "Jake," she said, "we're here to inform you that your employment is being terminated, effective immediately." "What? Why?" "We have received a report from your manager, Kyle, that you have been falsifying timesheets, that you have been clocking in for shifts you did not work." "That's a lie. We have video evidence." I froze. Mark. He had set me up. He had Kyle, the golden retriever manager, in his pocket. He had made a fake report. He had probably edited the timestamps on the security footage. "Wait," I said. "This is a setup. Your brother has nothing to do with this," Patricia said. "Security will escort you out." I looked at her. I looked at the guard. I realized in that moment that I had no power. I was a data entry clerk. I was nobody. Mark had the title. Mark had the tenure. Mark had the friends in high places. They took my badge. They walked me to the door. I stood in the parking lot. I had a cardboard box full of my things, a framed photo of Ella, a coffee mug, a stress ball. I had been fired for fraud, the same crime my brother was committing. The twist. I drove home in a daze. I didn't tell Sarah. I couldn't. I sat in my living room, staring at the wall for 3 hours. Then my phone buzzed. An email. It was from an address I didn't recognize. A Gmail account. Subject: INRI, Mercer Logistics Investigation. I opened it. "Dear Sir/Madam, we are a law firm representing a whistleblower group investigating logistics fraud in the Southwest region. We have received documents suggesting that you possess evidence regarding the misappropriation of funds at Mercer Logistics. We are prepared to offer a financial reward for the secure transfer of this evidence. Please respond at your earliest convenience." It was a phishing scam. I almost deleted it, but then I checked the attachments. They had a copy of the fuel surcharge spreadsheet, the same one I had found. They had redacted names, but they had the same numbers. Someone else was watching Mark. I responded. 2 days later, I was sitting in a coffee shop across from a woman named Agent Reeves. She was from the FBI, Financial Crimes Division. "You're not a whistleblower group," I said. "No," she said. "We're not. We've been investigating a pattern of fraud in the logistics sector. Your brother's name came up 6 months ago, but we couldn't get the internal data." I handed her my phone. I showed her the photos, the logs, the recordings I never actually made, but the evidence I did have. She looked at it for a long time. "This is enough," she said. "This is more than enough." "Will he go to jail?" "Yes," she said. "Almost certainly." Revenge. The arrest happened 3 weeks later. I wasn't there. I was at home, trying to figure out how to pay my bills. I got a call from my mom. "They took him," she said, her voice breaking. "They came to his office. They put him in handcuffs, in front of everyone. Jake, did you do this?" "No, Mom," I said. "He did this." She didn't speak to me for a month after that. The trial was fast. Mark had no defense. The evidence was overwhelming. The Texas carrier owner flipped and testified against him. Kyle, the manager, was granted immunity for cooperating. Mark Mercer was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. Restitution, $340,000. The news hit the local paper. Logistics manager sentenced in $340,000 fraud scheme. People stopped feeling sorry for him. People started talking. The story spread. His wife divorced him. He lost the house. He lost everything. The outcome. 3 months after I lost my job, Mark needed mine. Not a job like mine. My specific job. He needed data entry. He needed a minimum wage gig. But he couldn't get one because he was a convicted felon, because he had a record. He called me from prison. It was the first time I had heard his voice since the confrontation. "Jake," he said, "I need your help." I laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was the same bark he had used on me at the dinner table. "You need my help?" I said. "You need my job? The one you got me fired from?" "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm sorry for everything." "Sorry doesn't put food on my table," I said. "Sorry doesn't pay my mortgage. You took a year of my life. You laughed at me while you were stealing $350,000. I know. Goodbye, Mark." I hung up. Resolution. It took me 6 months to find a real job. Sarah and I almost lost the house. We almost lost everything. But I found a role at a smaller logistics firm, a startup. Funny, right? Back to the thing he made fun of me for. I started as a junior analyst. I worked my way up. 2 years later, I was the operations manager. I had a window. I had a title. I never used the $50,000 reward the FBI offered for my cooperation. I turned it down. It felt dirty. It felt like blood money. Instead, I used the experience. I wrote about it. I started a blog about corporate fraud. It got traction. A publisher reached out. I wrote a book. A small one. It did okay. Mark got out of prison after 3 years. He moved to a different state. He works at a gas station now, I think. We don't talk. We don't even have each other's numbers. 1900. Memorable ending. Last Thanksgiving, I was at my mom's house. The same table, the same pot roast. My dad said grace. He thanked God for the blessings we have, even the ones we don't understand. I looked at the empty chair where Mark used to sit. My daughter Ella is 6 now. She was sitting next to me, drawing on a napkin with a crayon. "Daddy," she said, "why is Uncle Mark in trouble?" I didn't know how to answer, so I told her the truth. "Because he forgot that being a brother means being on the same team," I said. And he laughed when his teammate was down. She didn't really understand. She's 6. But she nodded. I looked across the table at Sarah. She smiled. A real smile. We had survived. The sun was hitting the table in that specific way it only does in September. The same way it did the morning I lost my job. The morning my brother laughed. But the sun felt different now. It felt like starting over.